Top of the hour on a Monday, and we are coming on the air as the races are heating up in Ohio and in Georgia, with one wrapping up the first day of early voting and the other gearing up for a high-stakes debate tonight. We're going to be live in both places talking about how what happens there could have implications for the entire country next. Plus, we'll get you the latest from a New York courtroom where actor Kevin Spacey was on the stand today denying allegations, sexual abuse claims against him. The details on this long-awaited testimony coming up. And the third time's the charm for President Xi Jinping, who's likely to make history in another term as president, and maybe for life. We're going to be live in Beijing with the details about his plans on COVID, on the economy, and what kind of action he might be taking on Taiwan. And in tonight's original, we're going back to Florida, post-Ian, to get a sense of how difficult it might be to stay on track in school when buildings around you are destroyed beyond repair. That's coming up. Plus, after getting booted from Instagram and Twitter, Kanye West now plans to buy right-wing social media platform Parler. We'll tell you about why owning a social media platform now seems to be the latest must-have item if you can afford it. Good day, I'm Tom Costello. I'm in for Hallie, and tonight we are starting with some key races that could have major implications for the country and the balance of power here in D.C. with just 22 days until the midterms. We've got Georgia, where polls are closing on the first day of early voting. People there are putting in their ballots for two critical races. Number one, the race for governor between Brian Kemp and Stacey Abrams. They will go head-to-head tonight in the first of two scheduled debates. Number two, the close matchup between Senator Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker. Senator Warnock was among those early voters today. He told reporters that Georgia deserves a, quote, serious person to represent the people in serious times.
Claimed to have 800 employees in his business. He has 8. Claimed to have started a business that does not even exist. So I guess he expects the people of Georgia now to hallucinate and imagine that he is also a United States senator.
All right, well, Herschel Walker addressing the big abortion controversy surrounding him in an exclusive one-on-one with our own Kristen Welker, now definitively saying that for the first time, he did indeed write a $700 check to his ex, but he denies that he knew it was for an abortion. Listen to this.
Yes, that's my check.
Why should voters believe you in this?
Voters should believe me because I've been very transparent about everything I've ever done.
Well, of course, abortion has been something Democrats hoped would send voters to the polls. But 49% of people say they are more likely to vote, to cast their vote for Republicans next month rather than Democrats. That according to a new poll from the New York Times and Siena College. Why? In part, it's all about the economy. Voters who see that as their biggest concern favor the GOP overwhelmingly in this poll. And we know that's a key issue that these two men on the screen you see right there have been hammering relentlessly. Ohio Senate candidates, J.D. Vance and Democratic Congressman Tim Ryan are getting ready to face off tonight in what could be another heated debate. We're going to be talking to NBC's Jesse Kirsch in Ohio in just a bit. But first, let's go to NBC's Blaine Alexander. She is in Marietta, Georgia, her turf. All right, Blaine, we've been talking about this debate tonight between Kemp and Abrams. What are you looking out for when these two take the stage?
Well, Tom, this is certainly going to be a very closely watched debate and a closely watched gubernatorial race here in Georgia. Remember, this is a rematch between the two. This isn't the first time that they've gone head to head. They did it back in 2018 and they're back at it again in 2022. But this is a very different contest this time around. For starters, Governor Kemp now has 4 years of a record to run on. During their last matchup, he was a very closely Trump-aligned candidate. He was running as such. But this time around, his Republican sources have told me they're angling for some of the more moderate vote share, some of the people who kind of stayed away from him last time because he was so closely aligned to Trump. Well, now he's pointing very closely to his record. When you listen to him on the campaign trail, that's what he sticks to. So we're expecting to hear more of that tonight. Now, as for Stacey Abrams, last time around, she was really trying to essentially convince people of the validity of her candidacy. She told me as much in a recent interview. This time around, however, she's much higher profile. She's very big on the national stage, and she is going to be really kind of trying to convince voters of her plan for the state. She's talking about plans to expand Medicaid, plans to expand access to education, but abortion really is a central issue of her platform, and that's something that she's been trying to drive home in the final weeks of this campaign.
Well, of course, that Supreme Court decision on abortion was earlier this summer. Has too much time passed since that decision by the Supreme Court and the vote? And is that why now the economy has kind of taken priority over the abortion issue?
You know what, when I speak to a lot of voters, that really is kind of the first thing they talk about, the economy. In fact, I've talked to a number of people, one just today who finished casting her ballot here, and she said that she wants somebody who understands, what they're going for, the prices that she has to pay, things like that. She talked about gas. So I said, essentially inflation, and she said yes, but then she thought about it a little bit. She came back and she said, you know what, actually, the top issue for me is access to women's health care, women's rights, so essentially abortion. And that's kind of been a little bit of what we've heard. Now, a recent Quinnipiac poll shows some 43% of responders say that the inflation is the biggest issue for them, but abortion is second at 14%. And that kind of shakes out with what we've heard from different voters that we've talked to in different parts of the state. Economy is huge, especially when you talk to small business owners, and that's what determines their vote for either candidate. But they also say right after that, abortion, but that does determine their vote on either side, depending on where they fall on this issue, Tom.
All right, well, this is the first big election since those false allegations of voter fraud back in the state that you covered in 2020. You talked to officials about how Georgia has some new security features in the works to prevent any rumors from swirling this time around. What did you learn?
Well, absolutely. So one thing that they're really working on is securing poll workers. We saw so many threats against poll workers back in 2020 and afterwards. So what they've done is they've essentially unveiled a new texting program that allows poll managers to respond to report threats rather in real time. The other thing that they're trying to do, yes, is convince people that there are no issues when it comes to elections. I spoke with somebody who really knows Georgia election systems in and out. Take a look at what he told me.
What we try to do every day is try to show them that there isn't anything, to be afraid of, is that the system here is to collect their intent, and we want them to participate in the process.
So I asked officials, how do you combat those election conspiracy theories? They said, quite simply, transparency and putting out the truth, Tom.
Blaine Alexander in, as the sign says, Cobb County. Thank you, Blaine. Appreciate it. Let's bring in NBC's Jesse Kirsch. He's in Youngstown, Ohio, where the second debate between Congressman Tim Ryan and J.D. Vance is happening tonight. All right, so, Jesse, what can we expect tonight? More of the same?
Yeah, pretty much, Tom. I think that we're going to be seeing two candidates again trying to paint each other as inauthentic. That was a big part of what happened in this last debate. And that goes back to what Congressman Tim Ryan, the Democrat, is trying to do in this race. He is trying to peel off Republican voters who might be fatigued by Trumpism, who might be more moderate, who might be put off by J.D. Vance's positions on various issues and his close ties at this point with former President Donald Trump. So he's trying to pull those voters in. Obviously, J.D. Vance is trying to preserve the Republican coalition in a state that is leaning red and should, in theory, go to the Republican when you look at the electoral politics of the state over the last few years. So when you see that, they're both pitching positions that aren't always as different from each other as they are on other issues. The two seem to diverge very obviously on abortion, but on something like China, for example, they both talk about a tough stance on China, but at the same time, they both say each other's opponent is tied to China in a way that makes it so they couldn't be the right candidate on that issue. So those are the kinds of things I think we'll see playing out. We'll see Ryan, again, trying to tie Vance with people on the far right, and we'll see Vance try to turn things back to the economy, which we know Republicans have been trying to do across the country, Tom.
Yeah, that's exactly the point I wanted you to make. The fact that you've got one side is kind of leaning in and the other one is kind of backing off ever so slightly in terms of identifying with their own party.
Yeah, absolutely. Without question. J.D. Vance, in the days ahead, this illustrates it perfectly, has three people coming to campaign for him. Ted Cruz, Tom Condon, and Tim Scott, three Republican senators, three big national names who are coming here to beat the party drum for J.D. Vance. You know who's in some ways literally beating the drum for Tim Ryan? Dave Matthews, he has a musician coming to perform for him. He explicitly does not want President Biden here with him. He has told me so in person, and amid concern that national Democrats aren't contributing enough economic support to the Ryan campaign and possibly missing an opportunity to flip a Senate seat, Tim Ryan is leaning into that. He's like, I like this David versus Goliath feel, and he's trying to lean in heavily to that narrative. So he, again, we've been saying this for months, he wouldn't be upset if you mistook him for a Republican candidate. But J.D. Vance is trying to make very explicitly clear that he thinks that doesn't line up with who Tim Ryan is in Congress, and he points to his voting record. But Tim Ryan will also say he has agreed with former President Donald Trump at times, and we've heard the former president in this very city, across the street from where I am right now, even acknowledge that there have been times where Ryan has sided with Republicans in Congress.
All right, I got to make this one quick here, Jesse, but listen, Ohio is a proud manufacturing state. Talk about the pressure to revive jobs, factory jobs there.
Yeah, so Tim Ryan has been a member of Congress, actually representing this very district for close to 20 years. And he is always talking about jobs, jobs, jobs. Vance will say that jobs have been lost on Ryan's watch. And he makes the argument there that Ryan has had his shot here and that it's time to move on to someone new. But there are also new jobs being talked about coming to this state. And so Ryan, I think, is going to keep trying to lean into that as much as he possibly can, Tom.
All right, Jesse, on the job in Ohio. Jesse, thank you very much. All right, now to Ukraine, which is today calling for more air defense weapons from the West, saying it has no time for slow action after a new deadly wave of drone attacks struck Kyiv, killing at least 4 people. In a statement, the head of President Zelensky's office says the country needs the weapons to, quote, defend the sky and destroy the enemy. These are the images coming out of Kyiv today. Smoke, rubble, total destruction. Among the dead were a young couple, including a woman who was 6 months pregnant, according to Vitaly Yachenko, the mayor of Kyiv. Ukraine says kamikaze drones from Iran are behind the attack, and they have this nickname, kamikaze, because they're known for destroying targets by physically crashing into them, much as Japanese pilots did in World War II. NBC's Cal Perry is with me now. He's joining us from Kyiv. All right, Cal, this attack is coming just a week after Russia unleashed a different wave of missiles across the country, and it seems that Russia is set on deliberately hitting civilian regions and infrastructure now.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. Or they're aiming for things and then missing them because it's sort of an incompetence in these airstrikes. Either way, the result is that civilians are dying. These drones, Tom, are fascinating. This was the first time I've seen them come into a city. They come in low. They fly very slowly. They're basically like a rocket with a moped motor on the back. You can hear them as they go overhead. They send the birds off the buildings, and then they slam into their targets. Now, Kyiv is protected by an extensive air defense system. 23 of 28 drones this morning were shot down, so only 5 of them actually reaching the ground. But again, with a devastating impact. I mean, this apartment building that we visited had collapsed on itself. 3 bedrooms completely destroyed. It's not the kind of damage that you would expect from a drone, but these are, again, large drones laden with explosives, sometimes packed with fuel. And as you said, they just slam into the target, causing fires, causing explosions, and even some of the ones that are shot out of the sky by those air defense systems have to land somewhere, and as they fall, they do damage.
Well, Iran is denying that it has supplied Russia with these kamikaze drones, but U.S. officials have said that the first batch of these weapons actually was delivered back in August. Is this a window, then, into how well equipped or poorly equipped the Russian military is right now, given that it had to go to Iran for help?
Yeah, it certainly seems to be. And these are much cheaper, these drones, than these cruise missiles. And the government here in Kyiv was expecting this, and they told us to expect it. They said Vladimir Putin is running out of these cruise missiles. They are more precise, these cruise missiles. They are expensive to use. These drones, in comparison, are cheap. The other thing that the president here of Ukraine has said is that there are over 2,400 of them, he says, supplied by Iran to the Russians. And he's added that they believe some of them are now in Belarus, so the country to the north of where I am, which is of concern to officials, of course, because then these drones wouldn't just be coming in from the south like they did today. They could come from multiple directions. And again, the goal to overwhelm that air defense system is the things here that officials are worried about, Tom.
but the majority was shot down today. All right, well, let me ask you just about the mood on the streets in Kyiv. People are hiding in bomb shelters again, waiting in subway stations. Are people thinking about leaving, or are they determined to stay even as these strikes keep happening?
I think some folks are thinking about leaving. One of the things that happened this week was schools got canceled. You can see how dark the city is behind me. It's partly because people are fearing airstrikes. It's partly because they're trying to conserve energy here. The energy infrastructure was hit hard. There are sections of this city that are going to have to go without power, and so people are trying to conserve energy. One official said on Telegram, turn out your lights or pretty soon we're going to have to break out the candles. So the situation here is deteriorating, and as you've kind of indicated, for months, this was a place that people were coming back to, where life was returning to normal. It is now once again a city sort of plunged into darkness, worried about future airstrikes.
All right, Cal, thank you. Cal Perry reporting from Kyiv on Edge again tonight. Today, the State Department is saying that detained Americans in Iran's Evin prison are accounted for after at least 8 people died and dozens more were injured in a fire there. Thick smoke was seen coming from the prison Saturday night. Iran state media says inmates set fire to prison uniforms, which caused the blaze itself, while citing, quote, skirmishes between prisoners and personnel. The prison is known for holding dissidents and foreigners, including one American being held on espionage-related charges that the White House claims are baseless. Meanwhile, anti-government protests in Iran have entered their 5th week now, triggered by the death of a young woman who died in police custody last month. The Iranian government says what's happened at the prison is unrelated to those protests. NBC's Kelly Kobiella has more.
Well, anti-government protesters are out in several cities across Iran again today. Clearly, this wave of anti-government protests not ending anytime soon, in spite of a crackdown by the government and after a deadly and chaotic weekend there. On Saturday, a fire broke out at Iran's notorious Evin prison in the capital, Tehran. Witnesses reported hearing gunfire and explosions. Flames were shooting into the sky, and by Sunday, that situation was back under control, according to the government. The government saying that it was not in any way related to the protests, that it was the result of prisoners in a financial crimes unit of the prison getting into a fight and starting a fire. But among that, NBC, by the way, has not been able to verify the cause of the fire or the unrest in the prison. Among the prison population are 2 Americans. One of them, Siamak Namazi, has been there for 7 years. His lawyer said that he was safe after that unrest Saturday night, but that he has now been moved into solitary confinement, and they're concerned about his health and welfare there. Once again, they're appealing to the Biden administration and President Biden specifically to help secure his release. Meantime, again, as I said, these protests just continue. The protests sparked by the arrest and death of 22-year-old Masa Amini, who was taken into custody 5 weeks ago now, accused of violating the country's dress code. The Iranian president over the weekend once again blaming the United States for the country's unrest.
Kelly Kobiella on the foreign desk in London for us. We are sure we stopped another killing. That's what the Stockton, California police chief said when he announced the arrest of an alleged serial killer suspected of 6 fatal shootings across that region. 43-year-old Wesley Brownlee was allegedly carrying a firearm when he was taken into police custody without a struggle.
Our surveillance team followed this person while he was driving. We watched his patterns and determined early this morning he was on a mission to kill. He was out hunting.
Police are still trying to determine a motive. They said that Brownlee has a criminal history involving drugs and a DUI. Police credit good police work and an engaged public for the arrest. NBC's Miguel Almaguer sat down with the DA there to talk about how they captured the suspect.
Well, Tom, just a short time ago, we wrapped up a conversation with the police chief. He gave us chilling details. He believes the suspect, Wesley Brownlee, who's 43 years old and is a longtime resident of this city of Stockton, was on his way to kill again. He says that suspect was hunting people in the neighborhood when he was pulled over by investigators who didn't have a moment to spare, believing he was getting to kill again in just any moment from then. Tom, we also know that investigators say the suspect does have a criminal history, but they have no motive for why he may have been targeting people. At least 6 people were killed over the last several months, although a 7th woman did survive her injuries. She's the only known survivor. Police say they recovered a weapon on the suspect. They're using that ballistics now to see if those will match the previous murders. So this case is going to take some time for the DA to put together, but that suspect could likely face multiple murder charges in the coming days. This case still developing tonight. Tom, back to you.
All right, Miguel, thank you very much. You can catch Miguel's full report on NBC Nightly News tonight. Also, Wisconsin, waking up there. Some folks waking up to snow this morning as temperatures plunged into the 20s, leaving a light dusting of snow on some cars, flowers, and even pumpkins. 63 million people across the Midwest through the southeast part of the country are under frost or freeze alerts today. Record lows expected tomorrow morning, even some snow possible in some places up north. NBC's Bill Cairns has the forecast. Bill, as I said that, our floor director just did a shiver. You could see it. His shoulders shivered. Is it true now? Temperatures are they a month ahead of schedule? Where can we expect to see snow this week?
Yeah, Tom, this is not your normal, like, okay, the winter is beginning or the cold air. I mean, this is way early. We're talking some areas could have their coldest start to the fall ever. Like areas like Little Rock could have their earliest freeze. Kansas City, if you hit 22 degrees tomorrow morning, it'd be the earliest you've ever hit 22 degrees. So on the maps, we have snow, and it's been snowing pretty hard in northern portions of Michigan, the Upper Peninsula, we call this area up here, and that's coming off of Lake Superior. But we also have some snow that's going to be falling in Chicago O'Hare. They did have snowflakes reported today, first of the season. And later tonight, we could get a little band here off of Lake Michigan in northern Indiana that could put down a slushy coating. So don't be surprised to see that in the morning somewhere near South Bend. And then the mountains of West Virginia and also Pennsylvania will get a little bit of snow. But it's really this area to the north. There's a place called Giles, Wisconsin. They had 16 inches of snow. Ironwood has reported 8 to 9 inches of snow. And this is going to slowly meander throughout this region as we go throughout, not just tonight, but right through tomorrow. It's going to be ugly in the Great Lakes in this region for a while.
Oh, my. Listen, as a kid, I remember trick-or-treating in Denver with snow up to my knees. So, all things in perspective.
It happens.
Listen, speaking of out west, the temperatures out west, they're kind of the complete opposite, right? Some cities in the 80s. What does that mean for the wildfire threat out west?
Yeah, when you think of October is like a big wildfire type season. Like we get some huge blazes typically, but this so far, knock on wood, this October has been relatively quiet. California is very warm, but we only have one large fire right now in California. We have numerous large fires in Idaho and Montana, and that's where it is warm. I mean, it's 70s today in areas of Idaho, where it's snowing in areas of Michigan. But the good news is things are going to slowly change. We will see potential for a few record highs again by the time we go through Wednesday, and then it looks like Thursday into Friday, things change with this rain coming in, and then huge changes next week, Tom. We're going to look for the areas that are freezing are going to have back in the 70s, while the west is going to be colder and, more importantly, also wetter, too, as rain arrives. So a big pattern change. Just survive the next 3 days in the west, and then you'll have your cold spell.
All right. That's what I'm talking about. Thanks, Bill. Bill Cairns. Appreciate it. Hey, we're back. We want to let you know that the student loan forgiveness application portal has now officially launched. After a beta run over the weekend, we're going to have more on that in our 5 things to watch. First, though, we want to tell you this. Is it a miracle pregnancy drug or racial exploitation? Makina is an injectable hormone medication made by Covis Pharma to help reduce the risk of recurring preterm births. Now, the FDA is trying to pull Makina from the market because it says it doesn't actually work and could have dangerous side effects. But the CEO of Covis Pharma, the company that owns the patent, says there is evidence the drug may work specifically for black women who have historically been at higher risk of maternal complications. Critics say the drug manufacturer is exploiting racial sensitivities to make a profit. About 1 in 10 babies in the U.S. is born too early. About 14% of black women have premature births compared to 9% of white women. Dr. Natalie Azar joins me now. So, Dr. Azar, the FDA expedited this drug to market back in 2011, and now it says clinical trials have shown it's not effective. So what's your take on this? And will pulling the drug be harmful to African-American mothers?
Yeah, Tom, well, you laid it out well in the lead. I think what we're seeing here is a perfect storm or confluence of race, clinical trials, and capitalism. And at the end of the day, I think the question that we really have to ask ourselves is any drug better than no drug at all? You know, the FDA, I've thought this a lot in the last couple of years. I don't envy them. You know, they're tasked with really trying to prove, you know, beyond a reasonable amount of doubt that a medication that they authorize, that the benefit of that medication, you know, vastly or largely outweighs risk. And as you pointed out, you know, the drug was approved in 2011 based on a small study that did appear to show a benefit, particularly in African Americans, in a group where there is clearly an unmet need. And that happens a lot, Tom, that these drugs get fast-tracked for these, same with Alzheimer's drugs, right? It's like there's a need for these kinds of drugs. And then they wait for larger, more confirmatory trials to see whether or not, you know, the results can be validated. And in this case, there was a very, very large trial that showed that there was no benefit. And that's really the thing that's driving them to say, God, you know, this is a drug that has a lot of potential risk. We're talking blood clots, depression, fluid retention, allergic reactions, potentially cancer in offspring. So this isn't, here we're talking about quite a significant risk.
Yeah.
The biggest thing here, Tom, is that if it's pulled from the market, further clinical trials can actually be done. While it stays on the market, Tom, if you're a patient who's offered this drug in a clinical trial, you're going to say, well, why would I take placebo if the drug is available? A lot of moving parts here, and I think we're going to see in the next couple of weeks what the outcome is. I suspect that it's going to be withdrawn based on the advisory committee sentiments that we've heard so far.
I mean, the way you lay it out, it makes it sound like if you're out there taking the drug like right now, you could be almost a guinea pig. Dr. Azar, thank you very much for your expertise on this. Meanwhile, today, actor Kevin Spacey took the stand in a $40 million sexual misconduct trial. The civil suit is brought by actor Anthony Rapp, who alleges Spacey made sexual advances at a party when Rapp was 14. Spacey would have been 26 at the time. Spacey began his testimony by denying he ever made a sexual pass at Rapp, then pivoted to his relationship with his late father, whom he described as a, quote, white supremacist and neo-Nazi. He also seemed to suggest that his father's bigotry kept him, Spacey, from publicly acknowledging he is gay sooner than he did. Now, Rapp called Spacey a, quote, fraud for remaining in the closet most of his public life. Spacey came out as gay back in 2017 in his public response to Rapp's allegations. NBC's Rahema Ellis joins me now. Rahema, a few interesting things came out in court today. Kevin Spacey detailing his childhood, growing up with a father who he says was a neo-Nazi and who might have had something to do with, and it doesn't sound like that has anything to do with this case, really, does it?
Well, I think that Kevin Spacey's attorney was trying to paint a picture of what kind of life Kevin Spacey had, and that he was, according to Kevin Spacey, he was terrified growing up, and he was made to feel ashamed of who he was. And he brought this up in response to what Anthony Rapp said about anyone who doesn't admit that, an actor who doesn't admit that he's gay is basically living a life as a fraud. And Spacey was trying to indicate that people should have an opportunity to not feel shamed into doing something because he was shameful of the life that he had. And it may seem like it's disconnecting, but I think in some part that the defense attorney is trying to paint Kevin Spacey as having a fuller life than what Anthony Rapp is suggesting he's have as being someone who's a sexual, someone who approached him in a deviant sexual way, Tom.
All right. Well, Rapp was also questioned today. Now, this encounter, alleged encounter, happened many years ago. Rapp first spoke about it back in 2017, and questions came up about why Rapp decided to come forward when he did, right?
Yeah, there did, and there were questions about it. And what Rapp says basically is that he felt that he had an obligation to come out and express what was happening to him, because that was the time of the Me Too movement in 2017. There were these allegations that were coming out against Harvey Weinstein, and Rapp just basically said he felt that he just couldn't hold on to this any longer, and this is something that happened decades ago for him, and as with some of the instances that some of the people who were alleging sexual misconduct against Harvey Weinstein, there was talk of things that had happened decades ago. So it gave Rapp the feeling and the confidence that he could come out and express these allegations against Kevin Spacey.
And as I understand it, Spacey was also asked about the apartment where this allegedly took place, and he was shown the floor plan. And the apartment was a studio, which kind of pokes holes in Rapp's allegations that the encounter took place in a bedroom.
Yeah, this whole thing was that, and it may be kind of startling, it may mean something to the jurors, it may not, but the defense wanted to say that the whole point of Rapp saying that he was invited to this apartment of Kevin Spacey for a party, he didn't know anybody in the party and he felt bored, so he went into the bedroom to watch television, and that's when Kevin Spacey came into the bedroom and then approached him in a sexual way. So the defense attorney says, see the floor plan? There was no bedroom. This was a studio. So how could this have happened during this party, as Rapp is alleging? And that may give the jurors something to think about. Tom?
All right, Rahema, thank you. NBC's Rahema Ellis for us. All right, let's get you over now to the 5 things our team thinks that you should know about tonight. Number 1, more than 600 people have died in Nigeria after the country's worst flooding in a decade. Look at that. Officials there say over 1 million people have been displaced. Authorities are blaming a heavy rainy season and the release of excess water from a dam in neighboring Cameroon for the crush of water. Number 2, a British Prime Minister, Liz Truss, is facing serious pressure to resign after being on the job for only 6 weeks. People in her own party now calling her to quit. Why? Because her early economic policies and the subsequent reversal of those policies created massive turmoil in the UK and also in the global financial markets. Number 3, President Biden officially unveiled the student debt relief application portal today. So if you're trying to get some of your federal loans forgiven, you can fill in the form at studentaid.gov. The beta version launched over the weekend. The president says it got more than 8 million applications. However, several legal challenges could still jeopardize this plan. Number 4, all 7 members of the global supergroup BTS will be serving in the South Korean military. All able-bodied men there in South Korea have to serve at least 18 months. There was a big debate over whether the group should be granted exemptions to the rule. They're world famous, after all. Its oldest is expected to join the military soon. Representatives for BTS say that the whole group will get together again in 2025. And there's a new report that finds a significant radioactive contamination situation at an elementary school near St. Louis. How it got there, we're going to have for you later in the local. First up, though, China is holding the most important meeting on the country's political calendar. It happens just once every 5 years. Thousands of delegates get together to decide policy and choose the leadership for the next term. And at the end of the meeting, no surprise here, President Xi is expected to get an unprecedented 3rd term as the country's leader. His complete hold on power is being really compared by some to Mao Zedong's. In his opening speech, President Xi has defended China's zero COVID policy, and he mentioned Taiwan near the beginning, saying he hoped for a, quote, peaceful reunification, but would use military force if necessary. NBC's Janice Mackey-Frayer joins me now from Beijing. Janice, I was watching this a little bit today from afar. Let's start with Taiwan. It looked like he's warning the United States that Taiwan is China's own problem to solve. Problem is the language he uses, right? So how much are you reading into his comments about Taiwan, and how might it impact relationships with the United States and the rest of the Western countries?
Well, Taiwan is what Beijing sees as a core issue for China, one that they feel they have complete control over, not wanting to reveal too many policy cards so that they have flexibility. What's notable about his mentions of Taiwan in the speech, first coming higher in the speech than the one that he gave in 2017 at the last Party Congress. And then it was those comments toward the end of the address, Tom, about Taiwan that got the loudest and most sustained applause in the Great Hall of the People when he declared definitively that Taiwan will be unified with the mainland. And it's not that he's breaking any new ground with that statement. It's long been the position, along with this warning, that China could use force if necessary, and especially if there is interference from the U.S. But what I drew from it, Tom, is that Taiwan, as part of the mainland, it's now less of an aspiration. It's not a slogan. It's becoming more of a statement of fact, a policy pronouncement. So it could be likely that this is something that Xi wants to make central to his next term.
Hey, Janice, you know, you've lived there for a while. You've got your ear to the ground. What does your gut tell you about this? Is China really prepared to use military force?
They have reiterated this several times, and after Nancy Pelosi's visit, which we know was very explosive and triggered weeks of military exercises here, there was also what they call a white paper on Taiwan, which is a very important government document laying out China's case that it has every right to do as it pleases on what they see as a sovereign issue. So they see it not only as their right to invade Taiwan if necessary, but also to use other policy tools like a full or partial blockade in order to bring about this unification. However, they do say that they want peaceful reunification as the primary option. They will try to attempt this through economic arrangements, soft power pressure. But again, they do say that if it comes to blows, they will fight for Taiwan if they have to.
All right, I got about a minute left, Janice, but talk about what we can expect before the end of this session when he is expected to get a third term and essentially become president for life, right?
Well, people will be looking to see if there's any sign of a successor, somebody younger coming into the fold. That will give some sort of clue as to how long Xi Jinping might rule, because Xi Jinping will rule as long as he chooses at this point. With this particular Congress and taking on this third term, it starts to move China into more uncomfortable territory in terms of the degree of power that now lies with a single leader. People were also hoping to see some sort of relaxation of the zero COVID policy here, and it doesn't seem to be coming anytime soon. Xi Jinping actually praised the policy for putting people first, as he said. So it's unlikely that we're going to see any big change, maybe incremental relaxation of the policy, even though it's having a very heavy effect on the economy, on youth unemployment, and on China's sense of place in the world. It's more isolated because of the COVID restrictions, and also an outlier with the rest of the world, which appears to be getting on with the pandemic.
Yeah, and the supply chain remains affected. Janice, we're lucky to have you there. We all say that. Thank you very much. Janice Mackey-Frayer. Coming up, schools hit by Hurricane Ian are slowly reopening, some starting back up today. We're looking at how storms impact students long after an area cleans up in our original tonight. Plus, Tennessee beat Alabama for the first time in more than 15 years this weekend. So what did the fans do? Well, they tore down the goalposts, of course. Where they ended up after they came down, next in the local. So, you know, NBC News covers hundreds of stories each day, and because you could not possibly read, watch, or listen to all of them, our bureau items have done it for you. And this is what they tell us is going on in their regions. It's a segment we call The Local. From our Northeast Bureau, actor Ezra Miller pleaded not guilty to burglary charges in Vermont today. The Flash star is accused of breaking into a home and stealing alcohol back in May. Miller faces up to 28 years in prison if convicted on all charges, due back in court in January. From our Midwest Bureau, there's significant radioactive contamination at an elementary school near St. Louis. That according to a new report by the Environmental Investigation Consultants. The findings are reportedly based on samples taken over the summer from the school. Nuclear weapons were made in that area during World War II. In a statement, the district said it will consult with its attorneys and experts to determine what to do next. From our Southeast Bureau, the University of Tennessee needs new goalposts because fans rushed the field after Saturday night's upset win against the University of Alabama. They tore them down. Can you blame them? Well, video shows people carrying one down the street before they tossed it into the Tennessee River. The school was hit with a $100,000 fine for violating the Southeastern Conference's rule on ensuring safety on both the fans and the players. The schools even asked fans to help pay for it, so far raising $90,000. All right, now for today's original with in-depth reporting on a topic we have been keeping an eye on. Florida students hit by Hurricane Ian are struggling to return to the studies in the aftermath of the storm. They've spent the last 2 weeks out of school with so many homes destroyed and limited access to supplies. Here's NBC's Morgan Chesky.
Whitney Clapper and her 3 kids moved to Lee County, Florida just a few months before the school year started, settling in before Ian struck. Their Cape Coral neighborhood hit hard.
City officials came out and said that our zone needed to evacuate immediately.
With wind gusts of 110 miles per hour, the family fled to a hotel in Valdosta, Georgia, leaving their new home behind. In the days and weeks after Ian, the majority of public and private schools in the state closed, putting about 3 million students out of school, according to federal data tracking school enrollments.
I miss my classroom and my friends and everything.
Every school in Lee County closed. Some schools destroyed beyond repair.
We do have schools that remain in a high needs category, suffering significant damage. And some will need even longer because they will need to be rebuilt.
Without their homes and reliable access to Wi-Fi, electricity, and running water, remote learning isn't even an option, leaving parents like Whitney Clapper worried about lost academic time for her kids.
We're just trying to stay on top of it emotionally and making sure that we're talking to them every day.
And the district announced last week that displaced or relocated families will have the opportunity to re-enroll their students into a school that better meets their current needs.
I can tell you, and you should rest assured, that each site before a student or a faculty member comes into those buildings will be safe.
The governor acknowledging the efforts made last week when announcing the reopening of all Florida school districts.
The sacrifices that have been made by the parents, by teachers, by administrators have been really, really significant.
For the students, it isn't just about adjusting to a new routine. Subsequent storms can take children right back to that traumatic event.
For these students, a severe rainstorm is enough to trigger them months after event, to the point that they're not able to learn, they're not able to concentrate, they're not able to function.
Dr. Cassandra Davis studies the impacts of hurricanes on students. And she found that for 2 years following Hurricane Matthew, which hit North Carolina in 2016, elementary student test scores continue to decline.
What happens to those schools and those educators and those students who presumably look pretty recovered and good? We would expect that they're not, but treating them and holding them to the same expectations that they were prior to the event is not right.
The Lee County School District was aiming for most schools to reopen Monday. But over the weekend, the district announced some schools won't be ready until the end of this week or even later, as they continue to ensure the safety of the schools.
I will not and cannot decide to open a school until we have documented that the area inside is safe for our students and our employees.
Now, students Piper and Tucker reckoning with a change of scenery yet again.
Yeah, this is insane.
A tough lesson learned about patience and generosity for this Cape Coral family.
Oh, Morgan, I got to tell you, I'm watching this and I'm thinking how awful for those kids. And if you are a kid, I don't mean to blindside you with a question here, but if you're a kid who needs to take the ACT or the SAT, and your home's destroyed, and your block's destroyed, and your school's destroyed, how can you possibly concentrate, especially if you're coming from a different background where already you face challenges every day?
Yeah, Tom, it's going to be so tough for so many kids, and so important to remember is the fact that the kids and the staff, they're all coming from, of course, as you mentioned, different backgrounds, different places. Socioeconomically, the differences will be glaring as this recovery goes on. The doctor that we heard from in that story gave the example of a student perhaps who is staying in a nice hotel with their family, who perhaps has more money or insurance for their home as this long road begins to go forward, compared to a student who maybe is sleeping in a shelter with little to nothing left behind. Everyone will have to recover from this storm, but those roads to recovery are going to look incredibly different. And that is why going forward, it's going to be incumbent upon those communities and outsiders to do as much as they can to help those who may not have as much as others to try to put their lives back together here, Tom. I mean, Hurricane Ian, when you saw the damage left behind in Fort Myers, it was borderline unfathomable. And to realize that so many of these families are having to start from scratch, it's heartbreaking.
Oh, it just, those kids are in a real bind. Morgan, thank you. Great reporting. Morgan Chesky for us. Still to come, Kanye West, who now goes by Ye, wants to buy a conservative social media platform. A social platform. What we know about that coming up. All right, we're back, and Kanye West, who's legally changed his name to just Ye, has agreed to buy the conservative media platform Parler. He says, quote, in a world where conservative opinions are considered to be controversial, we have to make sure that we have the right to freely express ourselves. Parler says the acquisition will ensure the company is in an uncancelable environment. Ye's Instagram and Twitter accounts were recently restricted after he posted anti-Semitic comments, and he's been making inflammatory comments recently. Over the weekend, he lied about George Floyd's death, falsely claiming it was caused by fentanyl. The Floyd family is now considering suing him. Let's bring in now NBC's Ben Collins to break all of this down. So Ye has been quite controversial lately. Parler was already there. It was questioned for its role in the January 6th insurrection. So how big of a deal is it for these two to be teaming up now? And is it dangerous if we have more of that right-wing fringe platform and somebody's paying for it?
Yeah, I think Kanye thinks it's probably a big deal, but the numbers do not show that. Parler is now part of a much larger diaspora of MAGA fans who are spread across all different sorts of social media networks. There's MeWe and Telegram, Truth Social, Rumble, there are so many of these sites. Gab is another one. I'm talking about like literally a dozen sites that do the same thing. Parler is one of those, and it's at the bottom. It has considerably dipped off since people started planning January 6th before January 6th on Parler. So he bought a product that even among MAGA supporters really doesn't have much utility anymore. We'll see if he can bring it back from the dead, but it's closer to the dead than a real active social network.
Boy, that's great. That's a great analysis. And it seems like there is a fine line to walk here between free speech and hateful and false claims, right? George Floyd was killed by police. The coroner determined that. So how much air does this really give to these false claims, to the lies?
Well, if he can really post whatever he wants, then he's, buying basically another 4chan or something like that. The problem with these sites is, all of these sites that try to sell ads or something like that, try to be businesses, end up having a line one way or another. Kanye West wasn't just booted off of Twitter because he said something unpopular. He said he was about to go DEFCON 3 on the Jews. That's what he said a couple weeks ago. That's just straight anti-Semitism. If he's going to play around in that, he's not going to be able to sell ads or have a real functioning business.
We're seeing more and more controversial people getting involved in social media platforms. Elon Musk's bid for Twitter, for example. You mentioned former President Trump's Truth Social. Do you think this enables people to say outrageous and false and dangerous things online? And to your point, is anybody listening if the audience is so spread out now?
It's really it's like buying your own brand of shoes, right? You get to go to Truth Social if you're like Trump. You get to hang around and get probably kicked off of Twitter if you're like Elon Musk. If you're like Kanye, you'll go to Parler. That's probably what it's going to be like in the MAGA sphere from now on. But I'm telling you, Tom, not many people are on that website anymore. It's not really a thing. I think he may have gotten suckered, and we'll see what happens from here on out.
All right, we heard it from you first. Kanye West may have been suckered. Ben, thank you very much. Ben Collins. That is a wrap for this hour. We're going to have much more for you tomorrow, same place, same time. In the meantime, the news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.